Do you ever feel like you only look good with straight hair or wavy hair, but not both? Or maybe, like me, you feel like you can only wear certain styles of straight or wavy hair, but not all of them. Or you might even just feel like everything looks good, or that nothing looks good, ever. Whichever way you feel, I think that hair is such a personal and individual part of us, and we all have our own unique relationship with it. So there is no one single right or wrong answer when it comes to your best hairstyle. But if you're struggling to understand what kinds of styles actually make you look and feel good, then here are some factors that you might not have considered before. Hey, I'm Jen. Welcome back. If you're new, here we talk about the small steps that we can take in improving and refining our style by catering to our individual needs. So if that's something you're interested in, make sure to hit that subscribe button and welcome. So I know I've been talking about color analysis and body type analysis for a while, for like the last 6 or 7 weeks. So I thought it was about time to switch the topic over to hair. And I just got a new haircut, so I thought this would be a perfect opportunity to show you some visual examples of what I'm talking about today. So I think a lot of us have a general preference when it comes to straight versus wavy hair. And this is aside from what our natural hair is actually like, but just from a visual preference perspective, some people always like to straighten their hair, and some people always wear loose waves. A lot of us alternate between the two. And while I think that what looks good is a very subjective and personal opinion, I also believe that these opinions, without us realizing much about it, are very closely related to the lines that are naturally found within our faces. In simpler terms, it's about looking at, does the face have more straight or curved lines? And some of you might prefer the perspective of the yin and yang balance. And there's a few areas we can look at to determine this. There's obviously the shape of the facial features, so the eyes, nose, and lips, how straight or sharp they are, or how round and soft they are. There's our bone structure that kind of helps determine that overall facial outline in terms of angularity or smoothness, and other factors like facial length or the fullness in the cheeks, how sharp the chin is, and even how flat or curved the forehead is. Those all play a role in determining that overall line of the face. And the T-zone is another area that creates more lines within the face depending on how prominent the brow bones and the nose bridge are. Now we can focus on chasing what looks good, but like I said, that can be subjective. So I thought, why not turn that around to what do I want to accentuate more? Because the feedback that I get from a lot of my clients is that it's easier to look at the individual features by themselves, but the difficult part is coming up with the holistic view when we're trying to combine all of the aspects together. So trying to answer the question, what is the overall impression that my face naturally gives off? That's the hard part. And it's hard because most of us have a mix of straight and curved lines that are found within our faces. I mean, if we were to look at it on a spectrum, there's going to be far less people that lean towards one end of the extreme, and most of us are going to find ourselves somewhere in the middle. And on top of that, with all of the emotional attachments that we have about our appearances, it really prevents us from having this objective view of ourselves. And if it's easier to look at the individual features one by one, then why not think about which feature do I want to accentuate by mimicking the vibe of that feature. Me, for example, if we were to talk about my individual features, I have a longish face, I have pretty taut cheeks, my chin is really sharp, but my T-zone is not very developed. My nose is pretty small and round. I've got pretty full lips, and my eyes also add a little bit of sharpness because of the overall shape and the angle of them. Now, if I were to categorize my features into 2 separate groups based on the lines that are created by these features, I'd say on the straight side, I have my chin, my lower facial outline, and my eyes. And then on the curved side, I'd say my nose, my lips, and probably also my cheeks. Not because I have full cheeks, but because I have a bit of width in my cheekbones, and that just tends to highlight the cheeks area more and sort of the round shape of them. Now, like I said, I think my new haircut can actually give you a really good visual comparison because I ended up getting these blunt ends with my front layers that adds this straight line. So if I wanted to highlight the sharpness of my chin and my eyes, for example, then I can style my hair in a way that really accentuates this straight end. And I think that creates an edgier and slightly more modern and harder style. And on the other hand, if I wanted to create a softer, rounder look and I'm trying to neutralize the sharpness more, then I can style these layers in a way that adds more curves to the shape of my hair. And that ends up accentuating the rounder and softer features. I know this is a very simple style change and it's a very straightforward example, but I also think that the difference is noticeable enough for you to see. And which side you like better is your own preference, and there is no right or wrong answer. But the point is not for you to try to decide which one is better for me, but it's to see the effects of mimicking certain lines within the face and which features and what kind of vibe become more highlighted because of that. Now, if you're thinking, well, I don't really know which feature I want to accentuate, I would suggest always starting with the eyes, because the eyes play such a big role in determining the overall impression. A really easy example of this is Billie Eilish. She's got these mesmerizing eyes that add a lot of edge to her look, and all of her other features are actually pretty soft, but it's really her eyes that add that level of mystery and darkness to her look. And it's also her dark eyebrows that frame those eyes really well. And if we compare these two styles, and this is somewhat similar to the earlier example I showed you using myself, on the left side with the sharp layers falling straight down, that really harmonizes well with the sharpness in her eyes, whereas the subtle curves that are created around the face, that doesn't have as much of an effect in bringing out that edginess. There's obviously the color of the hair and the bold jewelry that adds that edge, but if we were to just look at the shape of the hair, I would say the right side looks a lot softer. Here's another example with bangs. On the left side, there's more sharpness created with the straight wispy ends, whereas on the right side, there's this large curve created with the side swept style. And if we're just focusing on the vibe of the eyes, I'd say the left style is more effective at bringing out the edginess of the eyes. And this is not to say that Billie Eilish always needs to wear her hair straight, but since her eyes are such a signature part of her look, styles that accentuate them just work really well for her, and they also happen to work well with her style preferences that are more on the out-of-the-box edgy side. So even with experimenting between straight versus wavy hair, maintaining certain straight elements like how the ends of the hair are styled or how the bangs fall onto the face, adding layers to enhance more roughness, all of those just makes her look feel less costumey than like a full-on bombshell style. Another good example is Lizzie Kaplan, and this is an opposite example from Billie Eilish because overall, I see more straight lines within her face, with the long facial length, the shape and the width of her lips. She also has a prominent nose bridge that adds more of that straightness, but she also has these big, round, expressive eyes that give her this curious and inviting look, and they also make her look really approachable. So despite these other features that add more straightness to the face, I think that a wavy hairstyle really enhances the softness of her eyes and they really work well for her. I also know that she's a dramatic classic in Kibbe, so maybe it's the moderate style of the waves that enhance a more classic look. And again, straight hair doesn't look bad on her, but incorporating some elements of curvature like how the bangs fall or using subtle inward curls with the ends, that just makes the overall look a bit more natural and less stiff. So I'm not really talking about having a black and white answer between straight versus wavy hair, but I'm more so talking about figuring out like how straight or how wavy is suitable for me and how do I incorporate certain elements that mimic those natural lines of the face and what exactly do I want to highlight by doing so. Like I said, if we were to look at it on a spectrum, a lot of us will find ourselves fall somewhere in between, but I will also not fall exactly at the same point as you. I might fall here and you might fall really close next to me, but we won't be at the exact same point within that spectrum. And on top of that, considering factors like our natural hair texture, the volume, the color, even our style preferences, all of these factors combined are what makes hair so individual and personal to us. So experimenting just with different styles is really the best way for us to learn and to find our own comfort zone. Now, if we were to talk about specific characteristics that enhance these different vibes, I think elements that mimic or enhance the straight lines is not only the straightness in the hair itself, but also having some straight and sharper edges in the ends of the hair. And this includes your bangs if you have bangs. I also think that adding more layers adds those sharper edges, and the direction of the waves and how they're styled can also add more sharpness to the ends of your hair. On the other hand, characteristics that add or enhance more curvature are obviously the waves and the curls themselves, but I also think that the size of the waves could have an impact because bigger waves not only add a more subtle look, but they also do a better job at truly mimicking the lines that are found within our faces, because we don't really have very extreme waves or curls in our features. Bigger waves also add more polish to the overall look, but I actually think that shine has a bigger role to play in this because if you have matte, frizzy hair, that tends to create a more natural and free-spirited vibe. So tighter curls can still look very polished, and looser waves can also still look very raw and sort of undone. For me, what I actually pay the most attention to, more so than the size of the waves or the texture of the hair, is where the waves start. Wavy or curly hair always adds more width to the face because our eyes have a tendency to follow the direction of the hair. So straight hair is going to drag the attention down, and wavy hair is going to add more width. But the difference between all of these wavy hairstyles is whether the waves start around the mid face and the lower face, or if they start closer to the roots. Waves starting around like the eye level and the lower face, that draws the attention across, whereas if they start closer to the roots, then that draws the attention in all directions. And that's also what adds more of that free-spirited, like all over the place vibe. It looks messy, but it's intentional. So if you like wavy hair, but you want to go for more of a polished look, I'd say go with waves that start around your eye level and around your mid and lower face. But if you want to go for more of a free-spirited vibe, then go with waves that start much higher than that, so closer to the roots. A lot of you seem to like my wavy hair, and I call them tighter waves, but I know some of you were saying, no, these are loose waves. So I was trying to understand the difference between the two and why I only prefer one style over the other. And I actually think it's the position of where the waves start that matter much more than how loose or tight they are for me, because I don't think there's actually a set definition of what are considered loose or tight waves, but I definitely prefer my waves starting much closer to the roots because I'm intentionally going for that less polished and more free-spirited vibe. And some of you will obviously have a very different preference than me, which is totally fine, but you'll probably never catch me with this style of waves. I mean, I say that now, but who knows? So the next time you style your hair, I hope these factors come to mind because they might actually give you a new perspective on how you style your hair. I hope you found the video helpful, and I'll see you in my next video. Until then, stay unique and stay gorgeous.